Now, Argentina's peso currency has rebounded after the government hiked interest rates again, this time to 40% to counter a plunge in its value. Now, the drastic measures have been taken to try to prevent another economic crisis. Daniel Schreiner reports now from Buenos Aires.
These are nervous times in Argentina, so government ministers were quick to reassure markets and calm an anxious population. Their economic policies are on track, they said. There's nothing to worry about.
In
the context of a growing economy and with rising employment and less poverty, we have an Argentina that will keep growing for many years to come, but we have never seen such a big drop in public spending.
But soothing words are not enough, and the Argentine central bank took the drastic step of raising its key borrowing rate to 40%, the third rise in a week. It's to boost the peso, which this year has lost 15% of its value against the US dollar. That creates inflation, which the country has suffered plenty of in recent years. This is nothing new in Argentina, but that doesn't make the threat of an economic crisis any easier to bear, with everybody nervously watching the interest and currency exchange rates, knowing that the impact of any economic meltdown is brutal. Many are still traumatized by the economic crisis of 2001-2002, when Argentina defaulted on sovereign debts of $93 billion. Savers were refused access to their own bank accounts, and millions were plunged into poverty. Some fear it's coming again. Others believe it can't happen again.
We're walking on the brink. That's what it seems like to me.
In 2001, the economy was dollarized and all deposits had to be returned in dollars. But it's not like that now. The banks have pesos and won't have the same problems.
When President Mauricio Macri came to power 2.5 years ago, he promised to make Argentina what he called a normal country after years of economic turmoil. It's still not clear how close Argentina is to achieving that normality.
We'll have to follow over the next days and weeks how these very high interest rates will affect not only the domestic FX market, which probably will give some breather, but also how the economy will respond to it, consumption, investment, and so on and so forth, as it is very difficult to maintain such high interest rates over the long term.
Inflation is still high and investment is lower than many expected. But Argentina is hoping, praying, that the president's promise is still on track. Daniel Schreiner, Al Jazeera, Buenos Aires.
Joining us now from New York is Vanessa Neumann, the founder and CEO of Asymmetrica, a political risk consultancy firm focusing on Latin America. She's also an associate at the Columbia University Seminar on Latin America. Vanessa, good to have you with us. Was this the right move by the central bank?
Thank you so much for having me on, Rahila. Well, yes, unfortunately, it's an inevitable move of the central bank to sort of compensate for the inflation. What you're seeing happening in Argentina is really the deregulation of an economy that was artificially maintained really under the Kirchner regime. You know, the two Kirchners, right? The husband and then the wife. And that was very subsidized, very controlled, very paternalistic on the one hand. And then on the other hand, you also see that they also had been receiving a lot of money from Venezuela. So as that country has imploded, it has had repercussions throughout the region. So, and Macri faces a lot of internal opposition. So those three things, you know, the deregulation to more of a free market economy, the collapse of Venezuela, and the political strife of Macri, who does not have complete political dominance within his own country, has meant for some political turmoil, and that's what has caused it has triggered the inflation, and so therefore he has to bring the interest rates up to match it.
Okay, so we know that Macri has got in place this pro-market economic reform program. Like you say, it's really very much a shift away from the protectionist policies that's already happening in the country. But how is this going to affect ordinary people in Argentina?
Well, the way it will affect ordinary people is, unfortunately, it'll be most difficult for small and medium-sized businesses, and it'll be most difficult for people who have a deal of personal debt. people who currently have mortgages, their mortgage interest rates will not go up until the new mortgages. So people who are currently in the housing market going to buy and going to take out new mortgages will be hit by this inflation and by this rate hike, as will people who have, bank loans and credit card debt. It will also harm small and medium-sized businesses who don't have really negotiating power with the banks. Large multinationals or enormous conglomerates have stronger negotiating power, won't be as hard hit. It will also harm importers, and it will harm people who have a labor force that's denominated in dollars. But it will benefit exporters. So if Argentina will have to push its export market, unfortunately, still to this day, most of Argentina's export market is basically commodities. They have tried hard to get more into satellite and telecommunications and banking and the service industry, but that's denominated in dollars. So that's a little bit of a setback for that segment of the economy. But it's a good thing for exporters. Unfortunately, Argentina is entering into winter, and exports of commodities go down in the winter. So it's going to be a tough few months.
And I wanted to get your thoughts very quickly on the investor aspect of this. There is talk of the fact that some people are going to be shifting now from the peso to dollars. So who really stands to benefit here?
Who really stands to benefit? Well, anybody who has obviously government connections, or is a large conglomerate that can shift to dollars. So foreign investors, insofar as they can shift their local payments into pesos and still charge either their exports and their other revenue streams in dollars and pay their local labor force in pesos, that they'll see huge revenue boost to the detriment of the average labor force, unfortunately.
Okay, Vanessa Neumann, thank you so much for your time.